Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I am Cerise, and this is Storytime Saturdays. This story time is gonna get some of you guys that come here to the Dominican Republic thinking real hard, because a lot of you guys have been through this, but some of you don't know the warning signs, and some of you do, and you cut out real quick. All right. This is what we're going to start with. Oh, let's give some names. Let's call the woman Yvette, and let's call the guy Troy. Okay, so the guy is a French Canadian, and Yvette, she is a Haitian woman. So they got together and they started to hit it off. Now, the French Canadian guy, he's like, you know what? I really like this woman because she can speak French. A lot of Haitian people here can speak many languages, and one of those languages is French. So she speaks French, she speaks English, she speaks Creole, she speaks Spanish, and she also speaks a little bit of Italian, which is going to come into the story in a little minute here. So he really likes this woman, Yvette. And so Todd's like, you know what, Yvette, I'm going to be moving down to the Dominican Republic full term in January that just passed. And he's like, when I move there, I want you to be more than just my main squeeze. I want you to be my woman. Yvette was like, of course. So now Yvette, she has a baby. And her baby is only 3 years old, right? A little boy. And so she's like taking care of her child. And so this is an added bonus for her to have someone that wants to take care of her. So Todd moved here in January. Now, when he first got here, he was really excited because he just entered retirement. And he was working towards that for a very long time. Never been married, never had any children. He's kind of got that miserable look. You know, that miserable look where you can tell that either he's really sad, you know, or really angry. But someone peed in his cornflakes at the end of the day is the type of attitude that he has. But he loves her, and he loves making her happy. So now, when he first got here, like I said, he was happy. He was feeling all of the good vibrations. And so she needed a few things. So she said to him, you know, okay, I need some milk for the baby, and she needed some clothing for the baby. So she automatically started to put in her shopping list. He was like, you know what? Of course, whatever you want, it's yours. But then the more she started to put in her shopping list, she also started to, buy expensive things. So like she would buy the most expensive coffee instead of looking for deals. She would buy the most expensive toothpaste instead of getting what's on sale. And he started to notice this. And so when they would go out somewhere as well, she would say that she needs certain things. And then he started to notice that she wasn't buying the products that were more cost efficient. So he said to her, he said, okay, listen, you're going to have to stop a little bit on this spending because it's getting out of control now. And I am not going to take care of you and your high lifestyle. I will take care of you if we can live economically together and we can build together. He's like, I moved here to save money. I didn't move here to spend money. And she took it personally, and she's like, oh, how dare you? I only was asking for things that, another man would buy me. And he was like, okay, that's great, but I am your man, so I am taking care of you, and I'm just asking if you love me and you want to be with me, then treat me with respect and also treat my pocketbook with respect. And, it's not even like she was a young working girl. She's overweight. And speaking of overweight, make sure you guys check my my fitness video yesterday on Friday. It's the second one, and you'll see that I lost maybe 2 pounds, but it's still okay. All right. So She, she's an overweight woman herself. She doesn't really have a lot going on for her in regards to education, so, and she's just very loud as well. So, he got with someone that made him happy. No matter what, she makes him happy. So, and he loves her. So now he really put the brakes on. He put the brakes on and he said, we are not spending money on anything and everything. She started to order pizza instead of cooking. And then, when they would go out for a walk in the mornings, because he was also a very active person, they would go for walks in the morning and she would want just to get, the most expensive breakfasts as well. And he'd say to her, no, we can go to the Dominican restaurants and get mango and eggs and sausage and fried cheese and everything. And it's going to be less expensive than it would be at one of the tourist restaurants. And she would say, well, I deserve a tourist restaurant. I have a man that is a foreigner and I didn't get with you so I could continue to live the lifestyle of a local. Even though she's from Haiti and she's Haitian, she still has been living here in the Dominican Republic for some time. So, she lives like a local. And she's like, I don't want to go and eat mango. I want to go eat Canadian breakfasts, French toast. And, he's like, all right, we can do it once in a while, but we're not going to do it every single morning when we walk. So she would, she didn't like it. She stopped going on walks with him because, of course, she was going on walks to get the breakfast at the end. But if she's not going to be getting that breakfast at the end of the walk, for her, she wasn't doing it to lose weight. She wasn't doing it to spend quality time with her man, right? So she had her own intentions, and so he still went for his walks. So then she would cook breakfast at home. And then he said to her, see, doesn't it feel nice to sit at home and cook breakfast? And, and she's like, whatever. And she gave him attitude and just treated him like a piece of crap, really. So now fast forward, and then April comes. They're together for a few months, and it is not going good at all. She's constantly yelling. She's constantly screaming. The baby's always crying and screaming. Funny enough, only when he was around. So when he would go for his walks in the morning, the baby would be quiet. But then, he would even notice that too. And he would be like, why does the baby only cry when he's around? And she was like, because my baby doesn't like you. And he'd be like, really? But then her brother would come over, right? And it was supposed to be the uncle of the baby. Meanwhile, the baby called this uncle daddy. And the baby would be all happy and gleeful, right? And so the French Canadian guy said, first of all, why does she call your brother daddy? And she said, Yvette said, oh, you know what? That's just how we are. She doesn't have a dad. And instead of calling him Tio, like uncle, she calls him daddy. She just called him that from the very beginning and we never stopped her. And the French Canadian guy is like, well, isn't that going to confuse her when she gets older that she thinks that's her dad? And then Yvette's like, listen, I'm not going to stop it. She doesn't have a dad. She hears other children call their dad. So I just want to make sure that, she feels comfortable. Now, he even said to her, your child doesn't even go outside. When is your child playing with other children to where he's going to hear this, daddy word? And she's like, oh, just leave me alone. So when the uncle would go over to the house, she would always cook. She would always make sure that he had everything. And the French Canadian guy wasn't allowed to be around them when they were having their family time. Okay, so they lived in a villa. It was a 3-bedroom villa. And the little boy would be with Yvette and Yvette's brother in like one area of one of the rooms where there's a bathroom, a TV, couch, and everything like that. And she convinced this French Canadian guy that it was her brother and that they need to share family time. And the French Canadian guy would allow the brother and her, Yvette, and the son to just stay in the room for the weekend because he would go there on weekends. Not every weekend, but most weekends. So he works in Santo Domingo, and he works like on a farm all over. So he travels a lot, but the main company that he works for is in Santo Domingo. So he has to be in Santo Domingo throughout the week. And on the weekends, he gets to travel back to here to Sosua, but he doesn't travel here every single weekend. Okay. So here he is, he knows that the French Canadian guy is Yvette's boyfriend. So Yvette's boyfriend, the French Canadian guy, Todd, he's thinking there's no way in the world that that man would be any boyfriend towards Yvette, because this man knows that Yvette and Todd are together, right? So obviously Todd's thinking that it's the real brother. But why do they have to sleep in the same room together? It's a 3-bedroom villa. Yvette and Todd can sleep together. The little boy sleep in his room, and the brother sleep in the third room. What's the big deal? But Todd wasn't even catching on. And then Todd did start feeling like he was unappreciated. So he was like, Yvette, you're not going to get any more money. I'm going to buy the food, and I'm going to start taking care of everything, right? Because before, Yvette was paying for everything with Todd's money. So Todd would just give her the money and she would go do the grocery shopping. But she was always taking a little bit off the top, clearly. And so he started to sense that because she was going home with less and less food. And then every day she needed something else. There was always something else that she needed to get. And he was like, there's just something doesn't sound right. So he said to her, okay, Yvette, you know what? I'm going to do all the shopping. Don't worry about it. And I'm going to be paying for everything here on in. And she did not like that at all. She started a big fight. She started to throw dishes. And this was a furnished villa that he bought, that he rented furnished. She was smashing up other people's stuff now. So he said, listen, if you don't stop smashing up the stuff, you're going to have to go. And she left. Now, once she left, she was gone for 2 days. She took her son with her. Nobody knows where she went. But then she got back home, and the French Canadian guy, he was so happy to see her. He's like, Yvette, I'm so sorry. Here, like, just relax. You have to understand that a lot of money is getting spent, and we can't be doing this if we're going to be together as a couple. We have to make sure we save money. He's like, there's only one income, and it's a pension, and it's a Canadian pension, which is not as much as an American pension, because the Canadian dollar is less than the American dollar. And she's like, well, you can't just treat me like that. I have other men that will treat me better. And he's like, well, I hate to say it to you, but maybe if that's how you feel, you should go to those other men. And she did. She left her son with Todd and went out that night. And then she took a couple of photos of herself on her cell phone with an Italian guy, and because she can speak Italian. And I don't know where she got this guy from, but he was an older man as well. And she was like taking photos and she was sending them through WhatsApp to Todd. So Todd was just like, okay, you know what? He felt, get this, he felt like he was at fault. He felt like he pushed her to do it. She's a young girl, and all she wants is some money. And, he's like, how much is she really taking from the family dish, the family wallet? So he said to her, okay, we can make an agreement. Every day when you need something, you let me know. But when we go to do the big grocery shopping, then we'll go together. So that way he wasn't giving her hundreds of dollars at one time. He was just giving her, a couple of bucks each day. Like if she needed sopita, like some seasoning for the food, or if she needed milk or something, right? So he was just giving her little bits and pieces of pesos here and there. Then that way he could also keep an eye on things as well. So they came to an agreement that it was going to roll like that until she started to pull these games. And these are the games that you guys should really listen to, okay? What she did was one day they're sitting at their villa and someone knocked on the door, and it was a woman. And the woman started to fight and holler and yell and scream. And she said that Yvette owed her, borrowed 2,000 pesos from her, and that Yvette needs to pay it back. And he said, when? When did Yvette borrow this money from you? And she said, oh, many months ago, before she was with you. And he's like, okay, so why are you just asking for it now? And the woman said, because Yvette keeps saying she's going to give it, she's going to give it. And he's like, okay, and why are you just asking for it now? And she's like, because she's with you now. And, obviously you'll make sure you take care of people that took care of her. And he's like, this has nothing to do with me. Any 40 bucks, 2,000 pesos, any 2,000 pesos that she borrowed from you before me, that has nothing to do with me. And then so the woman started to yell louder and louder. And guess what? It was a setup. He gave the $40, the 2,000 pesos, to the woman to shut her up and get her away. So he's like, here, take it, go. Guess what? Yvette got half of it. Yvette got 1,000 pesos out of that deal because her friend got the 1,000 pesos. It was her friend. She didn't know her friend 2,000 pesos. It was just a made up story. So now little tricks like that she was pulling all the time. Someone would go to the house and fight and argue, and there was always something going on, right? And then so one day she went home and she said to Todd, a big problem happened outside. And he's like, what? And she's like, the baby stroller smashed into someone's car. And he's like, how did the baby stroller smash into someone's car? And she's like, oh, she was walking the baby. And as she was walking the baby, she was strolling the stroller with one hand, and it went off to the side and it scratched a car. And he's like, how could a stroller scratch a car? And she's like, well, it smashed it and it scratched it. And he's like, okay, well, just don't say anything. And she's like, too late for that. People saw it happen. And he's like, okay, well, just leave it alone. Like, they didn't come after you. And she's like, oh, they will. Later on that night, a guy banged on the door. And he's like, you got to pay for the car, blah, 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 blah. And she was like, oh my gosh, Todd, what are you going to do? And Todd had to pay for the car. It was 300 bucks, 15,000 pesos. Todd's like, you make sure you bring a receipt. You make sure you show me the receipt. And the guy's like, yeah, I'll show you the receipt. So she got him for that money. Now, what happened was Todd decided that he needed to get a breather, because every day these little things were happening and it was all around money. And he started to feel really stifled because as soon as his pension got in, it was going out. And he was working now from paycheck to paycheck, from pension check to pension check, like waiting for each check. Like it was, welfare day or something like that he was waiting on. And he had enough of a pension to be able to take care of himself. So he said to her, he said, okay, you know what? I need to go to Canada for a short little while. I'm going to leave you in the villa. And she was like, okay. And he's like, the rent is paid. The electricity's paid. You have a whole fridge of food. So you just take care of yourself and I'll see you in 2 weeks. But in reality, he went to Santiago and he just stayed in Santiago by himself and relaxed. Now, after the week, he started to miss her. He started to miss her a lot. And during the first week, he didn't even message her at all. He just had it up to his eyeballs being bothered. But after that, he messaged her and he's like, "Hey, Yvette, what's up? Everything good?" And she's like, "Yeah, but, I've been trying to get a hold of you. Where have you been?" And he's like, "Oh, his cell phone broke." And she was like, "Oh, okay," because he told her that his chip for his cell phone, his number, his Dominican number, it wasn't working as well in Canada. And she was like, "Oh, okay." And she's like, "Well, you got to send money to Western Union." And he's like, "Why?" And she's like, "Oh, because there's problems." And he's like what problems? And she said, "Well, she had to feed people. While he was gone, her friends came over and they cooked a lot of food. And, she had a couple of like gatherings and get-togethers, and she was partying." And he was like, "Well, I'll see you in a few days." And she was like, "Send the money before you come." And he's like, "Well, I'm not going to be able to do that. So you're just going to have to make way. Like I said, the rent is paid and you made your way before I met you. You were doing fine. So you're going to have to make sure that you continue to do that." And she's like, "Well, when are you coming?" And at this point, he was thinking he's just going to say another week, right? And so he said to her, "A week," right? Initially, he said a couple of days, but then he was like, "A week." And he hung up on her because he just didn't want to hear her yell anymore. She was like a dripping faucet, just dripping, 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 like tormenting this guy. So then he got off the phone, and then, a couple of days passed and he was missing her. And he thought, why doesn't he just come back to Sosua and surprise her? Well, that's what he did. He surprised her and he opened the door, and her brother were on the couch, and she was just kind of like leaning on him in his arms. His arm was around her, and the baby's head was in his lap, laying on the other side. So like the brother was in the middle. And then Todd looked and he's like, "Oh, well, doesn't this look cozy?" And the brother looked up and the brother said, "It's my sister. We're a close family." And Todd said, "I don't think that this is your sister. For some reason, I think that this is a setup." And the guy got up and he went over to Todd and he choked Todd and he said, "I am sick of your mouth. I am sick of hearing you all." And Todd does have a big mouth, very bad. Like he's swearing constantly and everything. And, he didn't just say, "I think this is a setup." He said, "I think this is a mother effing setup, blah, blah, blah," like something like that, right? And then the guy was just like, "Don't swear in front of my son," right? Like that. And Todd said, "Oh, your son. So it is your son." And the guy's like squeezing Todd by the neck. And Todd's like, "So it is your son," and everything, right? I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's real. Like, this is a real deal Holyfield situation. And this is what you guys got to be careful of. You don't want to be draped up from some dude pretending to be the brother, and then you catch him in the act and you realize you're being set up, and then all of a sudden you're getting choked out. You don't want this. You want to be put in a situation where a woman is taking less and giving more, or giving equal. Okay? Don't get caught up just giving money, giving money, giving money, because once you do that and then you pull the purse strings tight, it never really works out. Money is something that speaks volumes, and it has a mind of its own. It has energy, and a lot of people love that energy that it gives them. So it's almost like a high. And when they don't have it and you start pulling back on it, then things change, So he's choking Todd out, and Todd reaches for something on the side. It was a plant potter, and it was a ceramic one. So he just pulled it up. It wasn't very big, but he pulled it up and he smashed it over the guy's head. He didn't think that the guy was going to fall down, hit his head, and split his head open, get a concussion, and have to go to the hospital. Now, what happens here when there's a fight, anybody who's involved gets questioned because they get down to the matter of everything. So after this daddy got hit, he went unconscious. He went to the hospital and his head was split open. He got stitches. He was totally fine, like no major brain damage, right? He was sent to the station, the police station. And so, of course, Todd was incarcerated and he was just sitting in the Puerto Plata cellar over there, Puerto Plata, and he didn't know what to do. That's the last thing you want to do here in the Dominican Republic is end up in a cell, because it is not like around the world. They do not give you food, and everyone is laying beside each other. It's like a bullpen, and people are pooing like right in a hole. You know, there's no washroom where they release you to. It's for criminals. Okay, it is for people that are bad. So anyway, he was in there, and then all of a sudden the dad shows up, and they're in the same cell together in Puerto Plata. Like, how does that even work out? In any case, they get into a fight again. And then Todd was removed from the cell, and they realized that, okay, you know, they got to go to court. They spoke to Fiscalia. The Fiscalia realized that Todd was being used, that Todd was sticking up for himself because the other guy was the aggressor. So everything was dealt with. So then when Todd got out of Puerto Plata and he got back to Sosua, he told Yvette that she has to go. And he was like, you know what, Yvette, I love you a lot. And I really wish we could have made this work, because it would have been so amazing to be able to have someone like you in my life forever. But clearly, you are not respecting my boundaries and you are not respecting my life. So we need to break up and you need to go on your way. And that was it. She did. She just had to go on her way. But she did leave with his watches. She did leave with his credit cards. She left with everything, his debit cards, everything. He had to get DHL to send it here to him. And it took about 6 days. He had absolutely no cash and he had no identification to be able to go to the Western Union. He was fit to be tied, yes. So he still hasn't gotten his passport back yet. On top of that, he did get his debit card, because they sent a debit card to him through DHL. So he was able to get his debit card. But for the first 6 days of having no debit card, now because he doesn't have his passport, what he has to do is to get money is he can go to the bank machine. No problem. But even before he had his bank card and he had to rely on his friends, he was able to go online and email money transfer money to his Canadian friends. You know, now he has his bank cards and he was able to work it out, but now he's waiting on his passport. She's keeping his passport ransom. She's saying to him, you know, if you want your passport, she's not admitting to taking it. But what she's saying to him is, maybe you can, you know, ask somebody if they can find it for you. She's like, I know somebody that will be able to go and find it for you and look around for you. And he's like, oh yeah. And she's like, yeah, $500, and someone will find your passport. He's like, oh my gosh, this woman. So he's going to wait on his passport. He's just going to make sure that he lives as, you know, maybe sleep with one eye open and just do his own thing. But he learned a lesson. And the lesson at the end of the day is, don't be stooped. Do not give too much for nothing at all. Let people earn things. That's the way life is. When people start earning things and working for them, they feel a lot better about it and they appreciate money a lot more. So if you are stuck in a relationship where you are giving and you're getting nothing and you feel like an ATM, you might just want to have to speak up It may not be easy. Like Todd, it wasn't easy for him, and it's not something he really wanted to do, but he felt like it was something that he had to do. And I'm pretty sure that if you're in a situation like this, don't get caught up, get yourself freed, and don't be used. Guys, I'm Cerise Fairfax. This is my YouTube channel. Please do me a favor. Go ahead right now and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that like button. And also, don't forget to check out all my other videos. I have different things going on. I upload every single day. I have Random Mondays, Real Estate Tuesdays, Relationship Wednesdays, and then my talk show I upload on Thursdays, my local talk show here on television. And then Friday, I do Fitness Fridays. And then, of course, on Saturdays, I do Storytime Saturdays. And then on Sunday, I go somewhere in Sosua and I show you the streets of Sosua or the beach. It's a lot of fun and I do it all for you guys. So please don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. And if you would like to be a guest on my show, let me know. Also, right here, this is an advertisement opportunity for you. If you would like to advertise on my talk show here in the Dominican Republic, you can. You don't even have to live here at all. You can live anywhere else around the world. But what the bonus feature is, my talk show is aired all over the North Coast to hotels and also to a lot of expats, locals, and visitors. But we go live to air on Facebook as well. So we have an international platform on Facebook. And not only that, it stays up. It never goes down. And also, for $200 a month, you get an entire commercial for the whole entire month, again, on Facebook promotion, and you get a feature on the Living Good Talk Show Instagram, which is pretty good too. I know we all love Instagram. But this is another thing. When you are in town, you can also come and be a guest on the Living Good Talk Show. And you can also be a guest on my YouTube channel. A lot of deals you get for just one simple payment. Guys, I love you so much. Huge hugs, loads of love, big blesses. And don't get caught up because I don't want the next story time to be about you. Mwah. Take care. God bless.
Love is a rainbow.